Jewish survival has long confounded historians and social scientists. How can a group so small and so persecuted outlast centuries of expulsions, exiles, pogroms, massacres, displacements, and destruction? However, suffering is so central to the historical narrative that it can distort everything else. To some, survival is a miracle. But to see Jewish survival as supernatural negates human effort and sacrifice. The real secret of Jewish survival is adaptation. Nowhere is this more clear than in the music and storytelling of the Jewish diaspora, from Europe to North Africa, from the Middle East and the Americas. The Jewish story, like their collective music, has never existed in a vacuum, has as many variations as the cultures through which Jewish communities traveled, and is therefore intimately bound to the evolution of the cultures and music of every region. This is fact. What is not fact, however, is that the historical narrative includes an accurate and conscious recognition of Jewish contributions and value to our collective world vision. Jewish exiles from their native Israel have been in constant contact with their Russian, Polish, North African, German, Spanish, and later American hosts for centuries, exchanging ideas of science, finance, and most certainly storytelling and music in every location at every juncture in time. What was unique to Jewish cultural life, and very similar to other repressed culture groups, was that the extent of their persecution demanded an equal emphasis on emotional release and community creativity. Perhaps the root of Jewish passion for music and stories is anchored in their religious traditions, passing the stories of the Talmud and Torah for centuries through cantorial intonement. The role of the cantor anchored Jewish attraction to music. In cantorial chanting or intonement, every aspect of Jewish religious life was put to tone, and in tone set the basis for Jewish musical storytelling.
But cantors have always been able to find ways of inspiration through their music. Today it's with mostly in the liberal congregations, it's with guitar and singing and participation and inviting people to sing along. In the golden age of Chazanut, which was the 1900s, you have cantors who are singing big solos, classical music with piano and organ, and congregants loved it. They were fascinated by it, inspired. But over time, Jewish music has evolved because that's the Jewish people. We're resilient. We make do and find ways to continue practicing our religion, at times.
Persecution and exile has necessarily fueled Jewish innovation. In order to find perpetually new means for survival, finding gaps in what their dominant host cultures chose to value or not value, and creatively maximizing the benefit of these tiny windows of opportunity became a pervasive pan-Jewish trait. One opportunity was the joy and entertainment value Jewish musicians and storytellers provided not only to their own communities, but to their host communities as well. Jewish musicians, along with Romani and later African American musical colleagues were regulars at many, if not most, musical and community events. Since history is nearly always dominated by voices of the victors or larger cultures, Jewish contributions, like those of other persecuted groups, such as the Roma, were seldom, if ever, accurately recognized for two reasons. First, a pervasive bias in non-Jewish communities to recognize Jewish contributions. And second, the historical assumption that Jewish communities could be scapegoated for any problem. And in a moment, their contributions become twisted to be the justification for persecution. Therefore, valuable contributions to our world needed to be hidden. For if anything would be shown to be lethal to Jewish community well-being, visibility was the ultimate poison.
Nein. Ich kenn Chalasch.
Ja, von was? Aber das ist eine glückliche Zeit.
Aber du musst herangehen, wir müssen fragen. Sie müssen da lo.
Ich will nur fragen.
Das kann man rauswerfen. Добрый день. Я имею к вам просьбу. Я с Польши. Я 50 лет тому назад здесь жил.
Ви б трошечки почекали, я трошки
Добре,
застелю.
добре, на минуточку.
Добре, я трошки застелю.
Lieber Kek, du hast mal gewohnt.
Ja,
Ja. Du gewinnt die Kirche, dort weiter gewinnt, ich stand in der Piano, du bist der Beudem, du gewinnt das Schafe, du bist aus dem Balkon, wo es heute gewesen. Weißt du, was du? Можно? Не, ну мы же не делаем здесь какой... О, здесь я спал. Ту я спал. Здесь стояло такое... Ту было такое ушко, и я с братом спали ту. Так, а ту кухня была ту. Es ist gewesen, als wir so kennenlernen. So sahen daheim ein Stückchen Brot, so sahen daheim ein bisschen Peter. Wir so können machen auf Schabes Schulen. Wir können ein Stückchen kaufen hin. Oh, der Tat hat gemäß verdienen. Also, sagen wir, oben, wo es zu essen, soll nicht sein, in so man sein hingeregt, soll man sich schein ungetein. Und auf dem hat der Tat gemacht bei uns. Aber das ist gewesen besser wie große Palazzen. Dann haben wir gelebt. Dann haben wir gelebt mit der Teire, heim, mit den Taten, mit der Mamen, mit meinen Brüdern. Das ist gewesen das größte Glück. No, in Pomischlan, aber schön mit meinen Taten gespielt in der seine Kapelle. Ich habe nicht gespielt auf die Hasselis. 2, 3 Mal bin ich nicht gehabt gezahlt. Ich bin gegangen in der Schule. Der Tat ist gefahren auf der Hassel, ist nicht gefahren auf einen Tag. Wir sind nicht gefahren mit der Samolot. Wir sind nicht gefahren mit Auto. Wir sind gefahren mit Pferd, mit der Pferd, mit der Wogen. Wir fuhren 2 Tage in eine Seite. Es ist gewesen nach Hassel in Pomischlan. Das ist gewesen in einem Tag, noch Mittag. Ich bin noch geflogen mit den Taten. Der Tate gehabt du ein Pulpit mit Noten. Der Tate der Stiegeiger, das heißt Stiegeiger, der, wo er steht. Und er hat gespielt, du für Noten. Er hat gespielt, gib ein Kick, ja. Du, er sagt er, C-Dur, haben so schön. F-Dur, G-Moll, A-Dur, D-Dur, G, E, A. In seinem Gehört, Doje, D, von G, alles gehört, aber auf die Probes. Und was sie schon gewesen, was schon gespielt, hat sie das hatte nicht bedarf von sagen. Haben sie schön alles gewiss, was sie nicht spielt.
Ja, ja.
Es ist gewesen eine schwere Arbeit,
Ja.
aber dennoch ist gewesen ein größer Success. Дякую.
Что вы снимаете?
Що?
Что вы снимаете?
Фільм.
Фильм? А город?
А не а музикальної української національної народної музики.
Один.
Я уже сегодня поеду на
Кладбище.
кладбище, там цветки от свечки.
На Лучковском.
Ну, я не знаю, я спрошу. Не, он национальности, по национальности украинец.
Там все национальные.
Ага, и там на Лычаковской все? Ага. Я думал, что есть православные и католические. Одно все. Да, на Лычаковской, да?
Throughout history, we've had to hide how we've practiced our religion, but we've still found a way to do it. Now, being free and able to do it today, the way we can practice our Judaism musically is endless. And but one of the most challenging parts of being a cantor is balancing the past and the present, balancing where we came from, what melodies were Jewish, what melodies really encapsulated the soul of the Jew throughout history. And Jewish music has really come a long way.
Yeah, so few, if any, non-Jewish people have an accurate understanding of Jewish contributions, the creativity, the incredible amount of sacrifice and energy they've given to almost everything that we enjoy. And without this knowledge, there's a void in our consciousness. And worse than anything, it keeps us from being able to go ahead and be friends with and part of the Jewish community, be endeared by them and be engaged in their creativity and in the assets they bring to the world. What is the benefit of that kind of education? And so the reverse of this is that the more we eliminate our lack of awareness of history, the more we engage in each other's communities and relish and be excited by the contributions of these cultures, the more they become a part of us and we become a part of them.
In fact, for generations across most of the Jewish diaspora, when Jewish musicians, film directors, or virtually any profession accomplished, invented, or excelled in some manner.
Yes, so I had one of my heroes was also at one point a mentor to me, Dizzy Gillespie, when I was in Germany. And I remember him looking at me and telling me, you cannot understand a song unless you understand the history and the story behind it. And at that particular point, I had been playing with numerous African-American, Jewish, Romani musicians, and I didn't know the story. I didn't know the degree of sacrifice behind their songs, behind their compositions, behind their lives. And so bit by bit, I began to explore more. And as I learned, particularly in the area of Jewish culture, just how creative and how inventive and how much energy and sacrifice went in to all of the music and the musical theater and the movies and the films that I so much enjoyed and were so much a part of my life, that it became a mandate for me to become friends, to endear myself to the community and to learn the history. And no global perspective, no accurate vision of our world can possibly be complete unless we have this comprehensive narrative of how we evolved.
In tracing the Jewish migration and musical influences over time, we might begin initially by discussing the two primary paths of migration. The Sephardic migration, Middle East to North African to the Iberian Peninsula, and the Ashkenazi migration, Middle East to Ashkenaz Rhineland region of Germany and France, then later to Eastern Europe and back again. And finally, the further migration to other parts of the world, most notably the Americas. One glaring example of historically induced cause and effect. Toward the middle of the 16th century, conversos, Jews who had converted to Catholicism in Spain and Portugal during the Inquisition, began leaving the Iberian Peninsula. This migration initiated the birth of the Western Sephardic musical tradition. Hundreds of Amsterdam's Spanish and Portuguese Jews crossed the Atlantic Ocean to Brazil, carrying Western Sephardic customs with them. When Portugal re-encumbered Brazil in 1654, about 23 Jews sailed to the Dutch port of New Amsterdam, now New York. There, they established the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue Shearith Israel, the oldest Jewish congregation in the United States.
Иду.
Давай, тащи.
Вот оно.
Держи!
Поворачивай.
Давай,
Да, держи.
Пусти! Вот, давай, сейчас.
Держи. Руки.
Поворачивай, поворачивай.
Сильный.
Давай.
Ногами.
Опять здесь, стервец, Афая зовут. Вот ты где, стервец, а? Что они с тобой сделали, а?
Ничего.
Сколько раз я тебе говорил, не приходи сюда? Сколько раз я тебе говорил, а? Ну все, не три глаза, не три глаза. Вставай. Ай, Афай, ай. Какой, а? Эля, ну босс. Босс. Ну, как продали дом? С деньгами быть осторожным. Кругом воры.
В Америке нет никаких воров.
Все же я вам советую. Деньги хорошо прятать.
Ну, хорошо, не беспокойтесь.
Вот он, не лезь,
Help me, Daddy. Help me.
Пеня, ты где? Пеня?
Рябиня!
Да тут я!
Немного
Работай давай, работай. Дай мне мешок. Дай мне мешок, что ты ее трогай. Вот так, скорее.
Approximately 2.3 million Jews came to the United States during the Great Immigration of 1882 to 1924. This 42-year period, fueled by persecution in the Russian Empire, made New York City the center of American Jewry. The new arrivals brought the old world with them, setting up mikvahs, kosher markets, and shuls modeled on their homeland traditions. They also brought Yiddish theater, which helped ease the shock of adjusting to the new world.
Take this kind of concentration, and you're going to have all kinds of Jewish creativity.
All of the imagination and all the devotion that has been put formerly into holy books and commentaries is turned loose in the area of art, science, political science, economics.
And it's made for a kind of density of culture. Music, songs, books, articles, newspapers, poetry, theater, all coming from the Lower East Side.
Around the Bowery, Yiddish-language theaters were wildly popular. While new theaters in Times Square were featuring shows like The Wizard of Oz and the Ziegfeld Follies, downtown on the Bowery, Yiddish playhouses were drawing over 2 million customers a year.
It was beautiful, my goodness, the drama, the comedy, the singing, the dancing. It gave you heart, it gave you soul, it gave you feeling, it gave you everything that you wanted. Happiness, joy, tragedy, whatever you wanted.
They also brought Yiddish theater, which helped ease the shock of adjusting to the new world, and soon would become forever bound with American music theater, later known as Broadway. Eventually, the songs or centerpieces of vaudeville and Broadway shows became home entertainment. Song publishers sprung up, and the establishment of Tin Pan Alley, America's first music industry, was established. Over time, the pattern of Jewish innovators finding and filling whatever void in a society might exist, both for survival and to create stories for our communities, both Jewish and non-Jewish, integrated business and art, creating a litany of the most beloved institutions across the United States. Publishing houses of all varieties, Broadway music, and with the migration of multiple groups of Jewish storytellers, businessmen, actors, and musicians moving to the West Coast between 1915 and 1925, Hollywood and the impetus of movies and films, now a worldwide human institution, was born, and it thrived. Beginning in the late 1880s, cheap, upright pianos were heard banging away on West 28th Street in Manhattan. The cacophony of clashing tunes played by song pluggers for sheet music producers resembled the banging of tin pans. Thus, Tin Pan Alley was born. In 1911, Irving Berlin, the Russian-born son of a cantor, became the king of Tin Pan Alley with his smash hit, Alexander's Ragtime Band. He went on to write dozens of American standards like White Christmas, God Bless America, and There's No Business Like Show Business. The development of sound technology in Hollywood films coincided with the rise of Nazi Germany. The first film to use recorded dialogue and sound was not at all ironically a story of a Jewish jazz singer deeply attracted to the parallel world of African American jazz, but born to the tradition of a Jewish cantorial chant and Jewish storytelling, who insisted on becoming, well, a jazz singer. The converging events brought an array of talented European musicians to the Los Angeles music scene. Several of these emigres would invent the Hollywood sound, including Max Steiner, Eric Wolfgang Korngold, Franz Waxman, and Hans Eisler. One of the younger film composers was Ernest Gold, who fled the Nazis and came to America in 1938 at age 17. Gold is best known for his score of the 1960 film Exodus, which depicts the creation of the State of Israel. Today, some say Hollywood is dominated by Jewish producers, filmmakers, and composers. But we'd prefer to say, so embedded in Jewish history is the emergence of music, storytelling, and later film that it is a staple to Jewish communities' life and struggle for survival.
I think the cornerstone of racism, of anti-Semitism, of any paradigm wherein we believe that somehow or another the other, someone else, is less than us or worthy of some type of action that is anything other than loving them as we'd like to be loved, or as respecting them as all the religions of the world basically advocate, is a false narrative and a false paradigm, because it basically puts up barriers around my potential for growth. So how is it ever possible? I think it's Rumi that said, how am I ever less by loving more? And so in that context, how can I ever be less by appreciating and respecting the contributions of our Jewish cultures or Romani cultures or African American cultures, and trying to respect them on their terms, listening to their narratives and letting them self-determine their identity. It just makes me more. It helps me grow. And so, in my own perspective, the very concept behind anti-Semitism is a primitive construct linked to tribalism and linking itself to the antiquated biases that have grown out of our world religions, which quite in contradiction teach that we should love others as we love ourselves.
In 1939, composer Harold Arlen and lyricist Yip Harburg, sons of poor Russian immigrants, penned Hollywood's most enduring hit, somewhere over the rainbow. Written for The Wizard of Oz, it expresses more than just Dorothy's desire to escape the black and white world of Kansas. Written in the prelude of the Nazi final solution, it also referred to America, a dreamland that existed over the rainbow, where skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. This aspiration seems naive coming from young Dorothy, but Yip Harburg, a lifelong social activist, knew that America's potential was not always its reality. Battling for civil rights, he explained to a New York audience in 1971, the first freedom rider was Moses, and the whole Passover Seder is devoted entirely to freedom, to a fight for freedom, to how you get out of slavery, so that the Jews, being a minority, have always known that if there's any other minority being enslaved anywhere in the world, that it's their fight. So essential is seeing history and contributions accurately that any sense of justice in our world depends upon the unbiased and humane embracing of all culture groups in their contributions to our world. In 1958, the Anti-Defamation League asked John F. Kennedy, then a junior senator from Massachusetts, to reflect on the role immigrants played in creating and sustaining the United States. Kennedy was a passionate reformer who seemed to prophesize the need to acknowledge and embrace the contributions of our Jewish, African, Mexican, and all other immigrants to America.
Happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow. Why, oh, why can't I?
Our Native American stories, our immigrant stories, are our national stories, our world stories. They are not Jewish or non-Jewish, not American or French, but are part of the narrative of our world. Only when we have no respectful knowledge of this history do we tarnish the doctrines of freedom or democracy, and appreciation and respect for what has been sacrificed to give us what we so enjoy and cherish today. We might hear our collective immigrant ancestry asking if we hear their voices. Koleinu.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu.
V'kabel berachamim uvratzon et tfilateinu. Won't you hear our voice above all the noise and have mercy on our souls?
We are in your care. Won't you hear our prayer and forgive us, forgive us. Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu. V'kabel ורצון את תפילתנו.
When we lost our way, give us one more day to return to what is true.
Won't you take us in so we can begin a new year? Won't you please hear Shema Koleinu Adonai Eloheinu Hu v'rachem aleinu v'kabel berachamim uvratzon et tfilateinu uvratzon et tfilateinu uvratzon et tfilateinu.